Have you ever wondered about the differences in the creation narratives in Genesis chapters 1 and 2? These two chapters, found at the very beginning of the Bible, present two distinct accounts of creation that, at first glance, might seem a little contradictory. In Genesis chapter 1, the creation story unfolds on a grand scale. It tells us that God created the heavens and the earth and all life within it, including humans, who were made in God's image. The language here is broad and sweeping, with humans, both male and female, being created simultaneously. There's no specific timeline or process mentioned, leaving us with a sense of a grand, all-encompassing act of creation. Now flip over to Genesis chapter 2, and the creation story takes a more detailed and intimate turn. Here we read that the Lord God forms man from the dust of the ground, breathes life into him, and places him in the Garden of Eden. This account suggests a sequential process. Man is created first, and then the woman is created as a companion for him from one of his ribs. This is a far more detailed narrative, giving us a close-up view of the creation of Adam and Eve. So we are faced with two creation accounts, one broad and universal, the other detailed and specific. They appear to offer two different timelines and focus on different elements of the creation story. This naturally leads us to question, do these accounts tell the same story from different perspectives, or are they describing two separate events? The implications of this question are profound. If Genesis 1 and 2 are indeed different accounts, what does this imply about the rest of the biblical narrative, particularly stories like the one about Cain and his wife? This leads us further into the mystery and complexity of the Bible's first book. So if these two accounts were truly the same event, why do the details differ so significantly? Moving on to the story of Cain, where did he find his wife if Adam and Eve were the first and only humans on earth? This narrative quirk has raised many eyebrows and sparked lively debates. The biblical text says that after Cain killed his brother Abel, he left his family, found a wife, and started his own. But if we follow the logic that Adam and Eve were the only people on earth, and Cain and Abel were their only children, then Cain's wife appears as an anomaly. This anomaly, however, may hint at the existence of other people outside of Adam and Eve's immediate family. It could be that the first creation story in Genesis 1 actually describes the creation of humanity at large, separate from the more detailed account of Adam and Eve in Genesis 2. Therefore, it would make sense for Cain to find a wife if there were already other people in existence. Cain finding a wife then would make sense if there were already other people in existence. Another key to understanding these stories is the distinction between the terms used for God. Have you noticed the difference? In Genesis 1, the term Elohim is used when referring to God, a term that, intriguingly, is plural. This could suggest the presence of a group, a council of gods, or divine beings participating in the creation process. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? To consider that the creation of the universe, of our world, might have been the work of not just one, but multiple divine entities working together. Now let's flip the page to Genesis 2. Here the term changes. Instead of Elohim, we now see Lord God, or in Hebrew Yahweh or Yahweh. This change is significant. Yahweh, unlike Elohim, represents a singular entity, the Most High God, the Supreme Being. So we have to ask why this shift from the plural Elohim in Genesis 1 to the singular Yahweh in Genesis 2. Could it be that these different terms reflect different aspects or stages of creation? Or perhaps they signify different perspectives on the divine? Maybe Genesis 1 reflects a more cosmopolitan view of the divine, with multiple gods participating in creation, while Genesis 2 presents a more personal, intimate view with a singular God creating and interacting with man. Alternatively, could it be that these different names for God, Elohim and Yahweh, are used to distinguish between different narratives? Maybe Genesis 1, with its use of Elohim, describes a general creation of humanity, while Genesis 2, with its use of Yahweh, tells a more specific story about the creation of a particular group of people, Adam, Eve, and their descendants. So what do we make of all this? Are Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 two sides of the same coin, offering different perspectives on the same creation story? Or do they tell two distinct narratives, each with its unique perspective on creation and the divine? Could these differences indicate separate narratives or aspects of creation? We'll leave that for you to ponder on.